Ready? Okay. Wow. Call to order this board meeting on January 17th at 4 o'clock. Okay, Pledge of Allegiance is next. Mayor, why don't you lead us in the pledge? My pleasure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first order of business is to do swearing in.
Okay, we're gonna have you come right up front here.
Let's begin.
Photo of the universe.
Stand up.
Yep, we'll go at the same time and then. Stand a little ways from me so we can just do the picture. Yeah. All right, if you're ready to write in. I state your name. Having been duly appointed to the office of board member in the Park City School District.
I have been duly appointed to the office
Board member in the Park City School District. Do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
and that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
Congratulations.
After we'll have to give you guys a sign. So many.
Okay, the next order of business will be to elect the new board leadership. Board leadership serves a term of 2 years. We'll be electing president and vice president. So I'm gonna first open the floor for nominations for president of Park City School Board. I would like to nominate Andrew Kaplan for president.
I'll second on.
I'd like to nominate Wendy. Okay. Anyone else? Any presentations or anything? Okay, what we'll do is second the nominations, or do we just go ahead and go for the vote?
Yeah, we have to second.
Okay. Okay, I will second the nomination.
I will second the nomination.
So, want to present?
You accept the nomination?
Oh, no, I actually don't accept the nomination, but thank you. So,
Now we have to vote on that.
Okay, so, all those, we're gonna go ahead and vote on the president. All those in favor of Andrew Kaplan as president of the school board, say aye. Aye. And now we will all opposed. But that's 3 ayes and 2 nays. So, congratulations. I will now open the floor for nominations for vice president of Park City School Board. I would like to nominate Andrew Kaplan for vice president. Okay, I'll accept that nomination. Any other nomination? Any other nomination? Okay. Feels kind of weird to do this, but all those in favor of Reggie Carlton for vice president, say aye. Aye. All those opposed. Okay, you want to switch spots? Okay. And you're taking over. Yeah. Okay, next order of business is the board is going to review committee assignments and make sure that all committees have an assigned board member. And we will open, I think we've had some discussion, but
Yes, we have.
yeah,
You guys have on,
you have board docs open.
so it's 1.04.
Okay. Oh, yeah, yeah, that's a favorite. That, yep. Isn't it? Yep, updated. Yep. Perfect.
So these are pretty much the ongoing ones.
Been here for 5 years, but I don't know what that is. Is quad district something that he's very often, or is that when we meet with the other school districts in the county?
I think it's the others, I think it's the county, city, school district,
Okay,
or the other school districts, but we haven't met in probably 3 years.
okay,
I think the county or the city calls that.
thanks.
Yeah.
Which one's that?
Wow.
Quad.
Okay.
I think the one that we have to clarify. Is Chamber of Commerce with the Chamber of Commerce bylaws. I know Aaron was serving. And I think there's some discussion on whether it can be another member or has to be the superintendent.
I will send all of you the bylaws.
Okay.
Have those.
What does it say?
I think it needs to be the board president or the superintendent, and then they have to accept, their board has to accept
The nominations.
the nominations.
For the chamber.
Yeah. Okay, so. I guess that would be superintendent. Then.
Hey, can I ask you a question on child nutrition task force? We were talking about it not once. Is that defunct? Is that still a thing? Did that go on hold because of COVID?
It hasn't met since we've had the new nutrition director. I guess it's kind of a question for Mr. Tanner, if you want to revive it, or if for now you just want to let it lapse. I mean, I don't think it's met. I mean, how long has he been here? 3 years? Yeah.
Yeah, we've never met in 3 years.
Yeah. So we can, I mean, it's on there as a placeholder, we can take it off.
It's either way, I mean, I'd love to, Meredith's saying she would as well, so if it's a thing, we'll do it. If it's not a thing,
Yeah, I mean, I think,
to let you know.
like the way it kind of works for things like this is if we, so any task force that's created is a task force to serve the board. So that could be it could be a task force on child nutrition or any other subject. Typically, someone from the administration will run the task force, but the job of the task force is to provide information to the board. And there will typically be a board representative on a task force. So either the superintendent, or in this case, Mr. Tanner would probably be the chair of the committee, and then it would inform the board on, in this case, okay, do we need more funding for for nutrition services, what's going on with the new building equipment, do they need more, do they need less, what's, things like that. And that's where it came from, was I think probably 6 or 7 years ago, trying to get the school food in a better place, which is one of the projects of the board. So that's the kind of the origination, and then over time, you guys will see more task forces, some of which would be on a document like this that we review every year, some of which would be discussed in board meetings, and the board representatives will be kind of volunteered or assigned or whatever it is, depending on what the subject is.
Regional recreational master planning, is that the meeting that I sit in on with you guys? Or is that something else?
That's something different, and it is going to be meetings to bring a strategic plan. This year.
Okay.
Big timing.
Got it.
We have an interlocal governmental agreement with the city, and then we also have one with Basin Rec.
Okay.
And Basin Rec is doing their master plan this year.
So that,
So it's a lot, it's a big thing, so that all the fields, the basin rack, all of that stuff is shared resource, and we also have shared costs. So, the softball fields and all the things that the tournaments are on, we pay for the mowing, the water, things like that, and the city. It is the city pay for the water. They even pay for the water, yeah. But there's on every basic shared use facility that we have, it falls under that agreement between the city and county, or not the county, Basin Rack, the city and us. And it's really relevant because they're going to look at it again, but also because we have all of this land where treasure is, which eventually treasure will potentially go away or be repurposed. And so some of that land could be used as part of, shared resource. So it's pretty, we've had some people come in and speak to us, especially recently, but also over the years, about using that for shared use athletic facilities. There's definitely also a group of parents from the baseball contingent, but really wants to have a turf baseball field so that the players can play home games here before the snow melts. And practice outside as opposed to in a gym. So there's a lot of different things that can kind of come up with that right now, and it's, we intentionally didn't address athletic facilities in the bond. Because that was one of the big points of contention when the bond failed, is that too much money was going towards athletics, and that's not necessarily a school issue, that's a community issue. But now, it's kind of time to have those conversations again, and at least be part of the conversation, part of whether it's we're giving land or we're donating facilities, wherever it is. But there's a lot there. On the professional agreements, there's kind of two parts. There's the professional agreement as well as the contract negotiations. We'll probably split that up as we get into that. But they're separate, but they're all somewhat related and similar. In the past, and that doesn't mean that it's going to be the same, but the contracts are negotiated somewhat in the context of each other, right? Obviously, there's no interest in benefiting one group versus another. In certain cases, we need to play catch up. I think this year the PCEA EIG is going to be probably the most complicated because of inflation on wages and where all these jobs are going. So,
And we look to do an interest, like an interest based, like a negotiations training as we go over the guys.
Yeah, it's kind of that.
Can I suggest we just quickly talk through the duties of each of the other committees as well? I think it would be interesting to hear the work of each of them.
Sure. The chamber is just a liaison to the Chamber of Commerce. We're the largest employer in the city. And so they've always asked us to participate in that. City government and county government are, at times it's formal, but most of the time it's a liaison type of situation where mayor or someone on the council will have a policy question or say, okay, does the school care about this issue or do they want to do something? And then that liaison will go to the individual board members and say, hey, heads up, the city's going to do this. Is it, we can have a discussion in a board meeting, or it could be something like, they're looking to purchase a piece of property nearby or something like that could affect us, and or they want to change the traffic pattern, we bring it up. They would let us know about it, and then we say, okay, let's have a presentation from your transportation director in our next board meeting, right? That's kind of how it goes. But then they instead of sending an email or a communication to everyone, that's the way it is. The other way that stuff happens is through the superintendent or through Mr. Tanner. Anything operations related, city manager will call Joe, for example. So this is only in the case where it's kind of a policy thing or something that an elected member of county or city council wants to discuss with us as a body. Insurance liaison. So we have an insurance committee. We self-insure as a district. And that's something that Randy, you're chairing. That goes over, from governance perspective, what are we doing with that? What's our surplus or deficit on any given year? There's some discussion about, actuarial studies and how that's updated. Things change depending on how many people are in our pool. Things change year to year and how sick people get. There's a lot of different things. And then there will also be a recommendation coming from that committee in the budget process based on what the surplus is. And then that committee will also handle things during negotiations when there are specific requests to look at change of insurance or things like that, if that comes up. But that's what it's done in the past. JLC. So in the past, that's been something that our previous business administrator really took the lead on. He was in presence at the Capitol for most of that. You know, I think Jill and I assume Randy will have the lead from an admin perspective in that process, but we get updates from Lex and Cunningham on a weekly basis and sometimes daily. Things really start to heat up. And so I think that role is to participate down at the Capitol when you want to, or when you're able to, and then also to be kind of the board expert on what these things are. A lot of them you kind of learn over time. There's probably 200 policies, 300 policies that we have as a district. They're split into kind of two parts. A lot of them are mandated by state statute, and they'll be updated when the state statutes are updated. And then there's others that are up to us as an LEA, and we are responsible for, you know, deciding what that policy is. But there's a lot. There's probably 30 to 50 every year that require a policy update for the district. And then some of them are more important than others. Some of them are, you know, they don't affect the day-to-day running. Some of them affect funding massively. And, you know, how we, you know, use our USBA lobby and how we use people, you know, and how we work with the state PCBA. Heidi will also be a good reference and resource for you guys. So Heidi Matthews is here in the front row. Up until this year, she was president of the state PCBA. So she has a fairly good idea as to what's going on down at the Capitol and how that whole process works. But that's you know, I think it's a massive role, and, you know, based on your interest in what's going on down there, it's a good way to learn on the policy side what's happening. And you know, you'll quickly learn that funding in this state is very unique, and there is, you know, the way it works is they take as much as they possibly can from Park City and a couple other districts to fund spending in other places in the state, and that's because of the way that the state chooses to tax or not. But you know, we do have a role and we have a voice, and it's super important. Latino advocacy, Wendy, you want to talk about what we've been doing there?
Yeah.
So we have worked with the family planning engagement team. So again, Heidi's member of that, Eric Escobar, outreach liaisons at every school and staff for a number of years. But this is just that additional layer. So if something's happening at the county, if we need some additional support, we had an issue with a landlord a couple of years ago of the apartments, and, you know, did some work with them. So we do have a nice internal team, but then this is bolstered if we need to do anything at the policy level.
Park City Ed Foundation is a charitable organization that's only beneficiaries is the school district. And I sit on the board of that and have for quite some time. So that's what that one is. The professional agreements we talked about, recreation, student on the board liaison. Just if we have any questions, it's okay, call Wendy or I, that type of thing. Or we can't make it or whatever it is.
As a whole board, though, we will in closed session as we're working through negotiations. We'll do a collaborative process. We'll do an interest-based bargaining process. But when we have a closed session, you'll hear whatever the leadership has worked on that maybe you haven't been at the meeting. But you'll hear background, just the way the Teachers Association will tell their whole board and their entity, you know, about what they're negotiating. So we'll work as collaboratively as possible. You'll hear all of it, but they'll probably have the more experienced members of the board sitting with them, and they will get chances to participate in the training and in the potentially some.
Yes, the important things on that are twofold. One is that in general, we have more than 2 board members at any meeting of any sort where potential board business is being discussed. It has to be an open meeting, right? And so the reason that we select 1 to 2 members for things like negotiations is that if we have more than that, then it has to be an open meeting. And with regards to salary negotiations, it's better done, you know, behind closed doors. And then whoever that representative is will brief the rest of the board in closed session. But they're not making decisions on anything. They're representing the board's interest and reflecting back on what's happening in negotiations. The EIG, PCEA, PCCEA, those are the three unions, or not unions, they're professional associations, but similar to unions. And there is regular meetings with the leadership of those organizations, as well as board representation and superintendent. And that's to address specific issues, whether that's performance evaluations, professional development, things that need to be discussed at that level. And I think that's really the monthly.
Right.
Quad district is when we all get together. In those cases, when we do plan that and have those meetings, if we haven't had it for 3 years, everyone goes, because it is every meeting. So it's typically in the morning, on a random day of the week, and some people can make that for work, some people can't, but it's noticed well in advance. And then we discuss nutrition task force.
Thank you.
Okay. So next up is the consent agenda, and the consent agenda is items that it's a decision item, so it's something that we vote on every meeting. But they're things that don't necessarily require full discussion, like some of our other decisions, like a policy decision or things like that. That said, what basically happens is, in this case, we have, we're approving minutes from previous meetings. We're looking at account payable registers, travel requests. So any request for travel for a team or a club that has to be approved by the board from a liability perspective. Personnel information, which is hiring, retirements, all of that stuff, all of those positions have to be approved by the board, even though that's an HR function. And then revenues and expenditures. So what we do is in this case, I would entertain, we'll start it and then I'll kind of walk you guys through how we do it. So I'll entertain the motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes regular session minutes of December 13th, account payable registers of December 8th, 9th, 12th, 14th, 15th, December 30th, Jan 3rd, travel request, personnel information, December revenues and expenditures.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as stated. Second.
Okay, so now that is a motion on the table. And then if there's anything that you saw in here when you reviewed it prior to the meeting that you want to pull out and discuss. So you have a question about account payable register or a travel request, now would be the time where you say, okay, or a new hire specifically. Okay, is that a replacement? Is that a new hire? What is, what's going on? The hires are included in the budget. These are not.
But the names, if it's an executive context, or are we allowed to talk about the people? Not.
Not the specific people until it's approved and it becomes public. But you could say, okay, we're hiring an interventionist in Trailside. Is that a replacement? Is that a new interventionist? And typically, the way you can choose to ask that in the public meeting, or you can choose to, email Jill or leadership prior to the meeting, say, hey, can you get more information on this prior to the meeting so we can discuss it? Those are kind of the options. And that's the consent agenda. So these are the typical things that are in here. Policy is never in here, budget's never in here, but these are, the type of things that we don't necessarily have to discuss on an individual basis, which is why they're in here. With that, do we have any questions on these specific items?
No.
All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that is approved unanimously. All right, we're gonna move over to employee group reports. Okay. James.
Hi, everybody.
For new folks, I've met digitally in different ways. I'm Jake Jobe. I'm the co-president for the Park City Education Association. Each month we try to have somebody from our group here, usually either myself or Mary Morgan. She's eyeballs deep in a musical Ecker, prepping that. So I've got a statement on some goings on and whatnot. So first, I'd like to welcome our two new board members, Nick Hill and Meredith Reed. Much work in education happens because people commit time and energy to thankless tasks. On behalf of PCA, thank you for stepping into an important position for our community. In Park City, we have the privilege of sharing a strong working relationship between educators, association, and the school board, which is not the case in all districts in Utah. So we really appreciate that. And we're excited to continue building that relationship with you two. A few quick items, the one slightly longer one. So PCA is working with the district on scheduling time to complete interest-based bargaining training, which has been mentioned a couple of times. For upcoming compensation negotiations, we plan to begin those negotiations in earnest, I think kind of in March after the state legislature session, knowing that fundings will move around. There's some funky business going on down at the Capitol, so we'll figure that out first. So when we have a better idea of funding moving forward, we'll start that process. We're simultaneously planning negotiations on our licensed professional agreement. Each year, PCA and the district discuss changes to the LPA. Sometimes they're major, sometimes they're minor, it could be little things, big things. Typically, we wait till spring to do that with compensation negotiations also occurring. We hope to finish the LPA changes before compensation negotiations begin in March. So kind of a longer piece. So last week, Park City School District had a late start transition into a remote day when the power went out across Park City. A lot of you probably experienced that like I did. The PCA executive board asked members for feedback on the late start slash kind of canceled day. I wanted to pass along some of that feedback to you all. Before I do, I want to thank the district for communicating constantly with myself and Mary Morgan about updates on late starts. Dr. Gilday is often emailing us the night before and the morning of. Sometimes we're emailing like 6 in the morning and whatnot, those things. We appreciate that communication. And we also realize the interconnectedness of these decisions. Families and businesses rely on schools to be open so children's parents can go to work. So we'd like to invite some of those stakeholders into these conversations as well as we're thinking about late starts and remote days, et cetera. So a few thoughts that came in from our members. So as many of you know, we have teachers commuting 45 minutes or more on normal days, but on snowy days, those commutes easily stretch to an hour or longer. Our current procedure is to declare a late start around 6 a.m. However, we're realizing that 6 a.m. is not quite early enough, especially for the high school and the junior high, because our contract begins at 7:05. So personally, I live in Sugar House, like east side of Salt Lake. On snowy days, to be safe, I try to leave by 6 to make it to Park City by 7:05. I think calling a late start earlier, so like a 5:30 a.m. call would ensure that teachers commuting long distances get that message before they begin driving. I know early last week, we had a lot of teachers that were already on the road by the time that message got out. Outside of Park City, I know a lot of districts announced the potential for a late start even the night before, kind of as a warning. So people can be prepared, kind of allowing teachers, students, parents, and the broader community to get ready for that just in case. And I think discussing the pros and cons of an earlier call and the nighttime warning would be a good conversation to have between the various stakeholders in the district. I think we also have to remember that Wasatch has wildly variable weather regionally. For kind of the ski and weather nerds in the room, obviously, like, Southwest flow means Heber and Midway receive a lot more snow versus Park City, whereas like a Northwest flow can make Parley's Canyon into kind of a nightmare. So I know the district is in constant communication with other municipalities, regional school districts, South Summit, North Summit, Heber, et cetera, to make decisions about travel. I think more consideration though needs to be given for the regional variability of this on days when like Parley's is fine, but 40 is pretty wild. I don't necessarily have solutions to that necessarily, but kind of like the previous point, I think we have enough expertise in this room and in the community to find some solutions for that. As housing prices increase and more teachers are living further from Park City, this is going to continue to be a problem. And well, obviously late starts are inconvenient for everyone, teachers included. We believe there's ways to handle these late starts, remote days to reflect our changing teacher population. We also see this as a retention issue for teachers who already can't afford to live here after through a snowstorm to arrive on time. It's just another force that can pull them away from the district. Teachers arriving late doesn't only impact the teachers who are commuting. For example, 10 teachers are late to work and we lack substitutes. That means 10 other teachers and administrators have to cover them, which then doubles the impact. Mr. Arbabi at the high schools covering classes, things like that. So for this reason, it's not only about commuters. The teachers in the building lose prep time, and students who arrive and are in school also lose effective instruction because we don't have people in the classrooms. We won't need late starts all that often. When we do, I think some of these changes to make them easier for educators, and I think discussing some of this as a broader community would improve that for all of us. So PCA in the district, we've already started having these conversations, but I kind of wanted to invite the board into this, and we'll kind of be in touch about ways to keep schools open and keep educators safe. So, thank you again. Welcome.
Thank you.
Nice to meet all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, I.
So I just want to start by introducing myself. I'm a new face to just about everybody here. My name is Gina Cox. I'm the new PCCA board president. I'm also a school bus driver, so that's why you don't often see me, because I'm usually still dropping off at their students, but yeah. So fortunately, Rich was kind enough, and with Shad's help, we were able to get some things covered, so I could come and meet the new board members and the former board members as well. So hello, thank you for giving us this time to chat. I'd like to start off by just letting you guys formally know that PCCA is our membership-led association with members that actually pay dues. We are state affiliates, both the Utah School Educators Employees Association and also the National Educators Association. We offer representation and things like negotiations, disputes. We offer other benefits to our members as well. But we overall benefit from the organization of the strength and guidance of our affiliates, both nationally and state. We would like to piggyback on what Jake has already established, that we greatly appreciate the late start that was called last week, not only for employee safety, but also for the student safety. As a bus driver, I'm out there seeing the high school students trying to drive through these conditions, and it is terrifying. I've actually seen students get into accidents on the school. So we're concerned for our young drivers. We are concerned for our staff. A 2-hour late start does not mean getting to push the alarm button and snooze and sleep for another 2 hours for us. It means that we, in fact, we're actually at school, some of us as early as 5:30 on that late start day. It gives us the opportunity to get here safely. It gives our custodial staff and our maintenance staff the opportunity to clear pathways, driveways, make it safe so that we can all get to school. And 2 hours is usually enough time, but sometimes it's even later than that. When we're out there driving, seeing I-80, I-40, and then the sub roads cleared. So we agree with everything that Jake said. We would like to open talks about potentially making that call a little bit earlier at 6 o'clock. Like I said, most of us were already at work, which is fine. We are just fine with that. But it would just be easier for students and staff to get safely if we do a little bit earlier. The other thing that we wanted to bring up was we've received some feedback from our members and non-members within the ESP staff. There's some inconsistency with how the word is getting out to staff. So there were some questions about whether or not there is an actual program already in place that gets in touch with all employees. It seemed like some staff got notification right away, at 6 o'clock or so. Some staff got it, a little bit later by 6:30, 7 o'clock, and some staff didn't get it at all. So we didn't know if there was something already in place that just isn't being utilized to the best of its ability, or if maybe there was something that needs to be put in place. But we just wanted to open some talks about how that goes out so that we can all get the message and be able to plan accordingly. Lastly, we just wanted to thank you for the opportunity to negotiate a year early. We're really looking forward to opening lines of communication with all ESP staff. We're looking forward to talking with members and non-members via in-person and online meetings, and just trying to get all of our interests heard and considered. So thank you very much.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you again.
Hi.
So I'll introduce myself. I'm sitting here, I represent the EIG classified group that stands for Employee Involvement Group. And it's a group that formed years ago so that we could get the information out to all employees, not just those who pay dues. And I want to thank you for allowing me to be here today to talk to you, to introduce myself and meet you. And I'd like to thank Dr. Gilday and Dr. Sorensen for our continued meetings each month, where we can talk with both groups together. Negotiation training dates have been discussed, and we're looking forward to also starting the process. We're pulling some information together. We're happy to hear that EMS has started gathering data for our job study, so that along with the legislative information, we can have our job study information and make some really good informed decisions. I know that the calendar for 2023, 2024 will be discussed tonight, and we're hoping that there will not be too many changes to what was posted for the past 3 years. We have many staff members and parents who plan their vacation 6 months or so in advance, and any major changes to that calendar could certainly disrupt some of the families here in Park City. But I know you'll make the best decision for the best interest. I thank you, welcome you to the board. Thank you guys for this once a month for update, and we'll continue to be in contact with Dr. Gilday and Dr. Sorensen. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Mr. Tanner.
Good afternoon. This is the operations update for the 17th of January 23. Just starting out with a little bit of situational awareness with COVID. The county is still in a low COVID risk status, but all of our back shop COVID mitigations are still in place, including a reporting, air quality, enhanced cleaning, filtration units, and sanitation. We are watching the XBB variant and are prepared to quickly ramp up as required. We have plenty of tests and PPE at hand. We experience an outbreak. But normally this time of year, we see increases in colds and flu. We saw a lot of that last month. We're actually kind of on the way down from that this month. Just a reminder to the board that this time last year, we were at the peak of COVID in Summit County. So from a long way in a year. In the buildings grounds department, Todd Hanson and his team are doing a great job with snow removal. One of their big jobs right now is trucking away a lot of the snow that's blocking the parking spots. So you'll see a payloader out there and dump trucks hauling stuff away at our expense to clear up the parking lots. The 2-hour delay for school was called last week, and the power outage ultimately closed the school on the Kearns campus. And we plan on conducting a postmortem to take a lot of the suggestions that the employee groups have discussed. We've already discussed it quite a bit with the admin during the admin meeting. Totally on board with what Jake and Gina and Cindy have all mentioned. If we can call it earlier, we will. The problem is, we've got different weather conditions on either side of the district. We've got people commuting in, about 20% of our employees from the valley. So really, we're watching I-80 coming up on Harvey's Canyon. The biggest variable, though, is what kind of protection or what kind of cleaning we get from Summit County to snowplows. So right at that 5 to 6 o'clock time period is right when the plows are hitting the road. And trusting, I'm out there driving around checking this out. And so it kind of depends on how effective they are. What really threw the switch for us this last time to make us call it was I-80 was in chains at 5:30 in the morning. In yellow and red, if you look at the cameras on it, and a lot more snow than the day before. But a lot of factors go into deciding what to do, and it's really a judgment call at the end of the day. And Jill and I and Todd Hanson in the morning discussed it about quarter to 6. Making a call prior to that would probably be a little problematic. Yes, last week, but if we know there's a clean kill for the snow hits us, Canyon's close, and clearly we'll call it the day before. But some of the stuff, just by the nature of how well it progresses through this area, we have to kind of watch it. Operations is preparing for Sundance. You may have noticed a tent erected in the lot of the high school, laying down a steel plate across our water line in front of the high school, so we don't break it again this year. And we also have an emergency operations center set up that's staffed by Park City Police, Summit County Sheriff, FBI, State Police, Department of Homeland Security, all different security elements in addition to all the public works entities, all we have police departments, and so there's a hotline for each one of those people, and if she pops up in a particular area, those assets can roll to support any things that we got going on in Sundance. Ski parking is active at Jeremy. We have Woodward parking there for their employees on the weekend. Park City High School, we have Park City Mountain Resort, and at Treasure Mountain, we have as needed Deer Valley, although they've been using Richardson's flag for the last couple of weekends. We've had some minor issues, but most of those things have been worked out. And those, I'm glad to say, are progressing very well. Operations is working very closely with our owners, Rep Mocha, our two builders, Hughes and Hogan, to support the ongoing construction, particularly during the winter weather. The FY24 capital outlay budget process is underway, and we use that to address maintenance, equipment improvement project needs throughout the district. So we're gathering all the information and rack and stack it based upon need and priority, and how much money Randy gives us to address those needs. And we're in the starting stages of that. Transportation, Rich Eddington and his team are doing a great job safely transporting their kids in the heavy snow. They've been in regular contact with Summit County to try to clean up some of the trouble spots in some of the higher elevation places where snow piles have impacted the turning radiuses, trying to get those worked. Our staffing continues to be a challenge, and the office staff and mechanics are filling regularly to support the regular rates. State reporting might have an opportunity to hire a person part-time on a contract basis and come and do a lot of the reporting requirements to alleviate that from the front office who is out driving vehicles right now. And as an add-on to Park City's current satellite bus tracking system, we're looking at an option that would allow us to allow parents to do real-time observation of where their students' bus is, to kind of give them some advance notice if there's a delay. Child nutrition services are plugging along well despite the weather challenges. John's staff has been providing consistent service for our students. There's still one short staff member at Jeremy, with John and Brooke filling in, and the recruiting is ongoing for that empty position. John reports that supply chain has been relatively steady. It's just some minor quirks for the early part of the year, and he's preparing now for his end of January administrative review. Human Resources is working on a training date for interest-based bargaining that you've heard employee groups discuss, and we'll use that as a way to collaboratively prepare for negotiations to ensure everybody's trained on what interest-based bargaining is and how most effectively apply it. Dr. Sorensen reports that the application numbers have been improving slightly, and that they're opening up recruiting pools for next year's faculty positions, that we can start some inbound processing for employees, so if they get picked up, we can rapidly bring them on board. From a security perspective, Park City, the school district is holding its first implementation meeting for the Ajax instant notification system. You've heard me talk about this before. This is our first meeting with the vendor that's supplying electronic service, and that will be happening this week. We just installed door screeners at the learning center to notify staff of our kids who are trying to escape. That was by request of Wendy St. James. Park City School District will offer active shooter training and law enforcement response training on the 3rd of February. And we're reporting a Park City High School active shooter exercise with the Park City Police Department the week of the 20th of February. And we'll be looking for volunteers to staff that if people are willing. Reporting with Park City Police Department for traffic control on 224, particularly during Sundance, to get our buses in and out. As you know, that's on normal time period. That's difficult with the enhanced traffic associated with Sundance. It's almost impossible to get our buses out. So we've got the request in right now to the Park City Police Department to give us support. Would you like me to provide a construction update now, or wait until when intersection? Okay.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yes.
So during Sundance, Friends Campus is getting off out 10 minutes early.
That's right.
So okay.
Is it every day of the week, or is it only Thursday, Friday? I think it's every day of the week. I was verifying.
Yeah.
Starting this week.
Just got to Rich, and he said it's for next month. I had announced it from Thursday till the end, but Rich just told me that for the buses, it's from Monday to Thursday. So we're still.
Okay, thanks. So everything starts on time, but out 10 minutes later, but with Fridays being a half day, Friday doesn't have to be earlier.
That is the first year doing Sundance live with our short Fridays.
Yeah, yes, we may not be earlier Fridays.
Are the buses all in the same place?
Yes.
Yeah.
So are we going for it, or are we gonna wait with the announcement of, because I was told this Thursday.
We're talking. right
Got it,
now.
okay, so not
Like I said,
a.
right now, we're gonna continue with the plan that we have Thursday.
Got it, great, perfect, thank you.
That's this 10 minutes for
Got
each day of Sunday.
It's actually better to get our kids off campus because they drive crazy.
Okay,
Great, that's all I have unless you have. other
Yeah, I
questions.
think, let's. I think we can, do you mind if we just continue on with facilities? and
That
then-
would be great.
then-
yeah,
And then so when Mike gives his report, if there's questions or things that you want to discuss, once it's done, go for it. It's an ability for us or an opportunity for us to have a conversation about what's going on and ask questions about operational issues. All right, yeah, why don't we go into facility update and then we'll go back to the superintendent.
Okay. Construction update for this month. As I mentioned before, we've got 2 jurisdictions that are overseeing and providing permitting for our projects. We report to the county, we also report to the city. 2 different sets of rules associated with each one of those, and we've been navigating successfully in the last several months. Happy to report that at all 4 of our schools now, we've got conditional use permits that are approved by the county and the city. Jeremy is under full construction right now with conditional use permit, USD project number secured. We've got 2 bid packages going on at Ecker Hill Middle School. One bid package number 1 is basically the bus lot and relocation of the bus lane, expansion of it. That's underway, under full construction right now. We're seeing some slight delays this week as the construction firms are struggling with the snow levels and the saturated soils. And so this week our construction slowed a little bit, but it's still ongoing. Ecker Hill bid package number 2, the overall project, the conditional use permit was approved by Suffolk County Council on the 11th of January, so just last week. The USB project number we worked to secure today, and I'm not sure that we landed, Jamie. I haven't seen. Okay, so that should be here coming within a day or 2. Hartley's Park, we're working with the county. We had a planning meeting with them. With the architect, we had a planning meeting with them today. Getting ahead of the CUP and rezone process. We're in the throes of taking care of that now. Trailside Elementary, we're also at a planning meeting with our architect today, about the same place where still the initial planning process is there. For the city schools, McClellan, the conditional use permit, USB project numbers are secured. Park City Municipal Formation goes on regularly, and full construction is underway there. Park City High School, conditional use permit and USB project numbers are secured. The Park City Municipal Coordinating is ongoing, and full constructions are underway here also. Just so the board is aware, there is a moratorium on construction work during Sundance, as defined by Park City Municipal. There is a waiver process for that, and our builders are planning to request a waiver to continue work. Most of the work is McCollum should not impact Sundance, nor should work on the backside of the high school. So we anticipate that we do. Just a reminder to the public that the construction summary is updated weekly on the district website, and then we have a spreadsheet that talks about the permitting process and what the status of those are, along with the layman's narrative of where the progress lies with each one of these schools. An issue popped up with Treasure Mountain Junior High, the soil piles behind Treasure Mountain Junior High, and what is going to be a disposition associated with those. On the 9th of January, the school district met with their environmental consultant, R&R, DEQ, which is the Department of Environmental Quality for Utah, and DER, Department of Environmental Response and Remediation. It's a mouthful. Met with them via a phone call, a Zoom call, and had a very productive meeting where multiple options were discussed for the piles, from temporary storage, where it's at right now, all the way to moving them off site. The initial indications are the piles can be brought to almost any landfill if needed, which is beneficial. We felt we might have to haul it off to clean covers and to which we have a very expensive, big price tag. But it's also still a possibility that soil will be temporarily stored on site and if treasurers acknowledge we will use that soil to fill in the hole created by the demolition of treasure. Versus haul it off site and then bring new soil at great expense to fill in. Park City School District requested additional time to provide data to help make a decision. And both the DEQ and the DER agreed. We requested a 45-day extension to produce a comprehensive sampling analysis plan, SAP it's called, and a 90 to 120-day extension requested to produce a comprehensive material management plan. What are we going to do with this stuff? So if it's determined that the soil must move off site, it'll be done over the summer when school is out and more kids are present. Park City School District communicated this to KPCW last Friday. Safety is paramount, but all safe alternatives will be considered. In addition to being responsible for the safety of our students and staff, we're also stewards of financial resources. So we're looking to safely remediate this issue with the lowest price tag possible. Soil piles are right now capped in accordance with best management practices. They're tested and they're safe. We want to assure the public that at all times the soils were and are handled in accordance with best management practices according to Park City Municipal and the new covenants provided by the DEQ. The district's owner's rep is with us today for MOCA. JD, if you have any in-depth questions you'd like to ask. And also we have a presentation tonight from MHT and Architects, the master facilities plan refresher for the board. So if you have any questions, happy to entertain those.
My question would just be around, obviously, with the permitting and the winter now, what kind of delay are we looking at, and to what extent do we have a financial contingency for that delay?
The construction projects go through the winter in Park City, right? It's what we do all the time. It's what people are used to doing in this area. MOCA is very well versed in watching over those construction projects, providing quality assurance. Our contractors, Hughes and Hogan, do this all the time. So it's something that we're able to do. It does slow things down a little bit, right? So we're looking at right now this week with the heavy snows that one of our contractors, Hogan's, having difficulty. They can show up to work, but they really can't do a whole lot. And so there will be some delays, but there'll be some opportunities to catch up too. I think overall, if you look at the overall impact of the permitting delays and the weather, we're probably 4 to 5 months behind our original plan schedule. We do have contingencies built in the budget, and we're still on track with those. But there is definitely a scheduling impact that's going to delay the kids that go to schools.
Thanks for everything.
Okay, thank you.
Scott.
We'll go student and Scott. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Zach. I'm the student on the board for student council at PCHS. Congratulations on getting elected. So right now for student council, it's kind of like a gap for us. We don't have a lot going on. We do have some stuff we're planning for in the future, like our winter formal dance. Unfortunately, it's not going to be in February like it normally is. It unfortunately had to be pushed to March 11th due to having scheduling conflicts for getting a venue. It's going to be held here in the front gym at the high school from 7 to 9 p.m. From the decorations I've seen, the decoration team putting together, it's going to turn out really cool. So I'm really excited to see what they do with that. And then we have another event that we are talking about. We haven't really planned it out too much, and that is going to be like a Popcella
type thing, which is basically just going to be a like big concert and possibly a car show tied into that. We haven't fully discussed it yet. However, it should be a really cool event. And then we are also starting to talk about prom, which I don't have a date yet, but it's going to be in like April, May. And that's basically it. Any questions?
And over the next several months, we will ask each of the board members if you're free during the day. We meet once a month with the student council, so you can get a preview on these, ask the students questions. And I always learn a lot every time I go, so it's great to hear student voice and what they're working on and all the different partnerships and collaboration they're doing in the school to make sure that they're event inclusive. So you'll look for it. We meet usually it's the 11:30 time slot, but sometimes it's a little bit earlier, and we stay about an hour. And you get to walk around the high school too, and kind of do the construction. And so we'll have each of you do that over the next 5 months. We're looking forward to that. And then after that, you can decide if you want it to be an assignment by the board or if you want to keep rotating it. But it's really fun. It's one of our favorite meetings each month. Each month I get excited. We get to go and Roger goes with us, and we always enjoy it. Well,
Awesome.
thank you. I'll
Thank you.
email you guys some dates. Sign up for which month. Perfect. Do you want to hear from Scott? So that you hear the.
Hello, everybody.
Great to use.
Yeah, good to see you again. It's been a minute. Great to see new faces. Scott Lader with NH2 Architects out of Salt Lake City. We wanted to do just a brief refresh on the facility kind of master plan.
No, you're not.
No, you're great. You will have to kind of crane your neck around for the presentation. You probably have seen some of these things beforehand, so
Yeah.
I'll let you get the presentation halfway through. How about that? Okay? We wanted to update, and we're asked to update just where we stand now versus kind of where we were almost what, a year and a half, 2 years ago. And so it's always good to recapture some of the background for this, for the facility master plan. And once that pops on the screen, you'll see that going all the way back to 2010, we'll pop to the next slide. There's been a lot of investigation. One slide before that, too. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. There's been a lot of investigation about where the district is going, projects that need to be considered. You can see there's all the way back from 2010 to 2015, there was a bond campaign. We were brought on roughly in 2019. You can all remember that date just because it's pre-pandemic and things shifted slightly as we were brought on. We were initially brought to support with the bond effort. And we, at that stage, is kind of being shuffled around that spring, and we all remember that. Started to connect some dots with the previous studies and develop what we're considering a master plan design study. Next one. Core to that was the foundation established by the educational master plan and the facilities assessment document. It was generated about a year and a half before we were brought on. And the graphic on the right was very important. It was kind of a leading discussion item. It was the 6 guiding principles for any design decision within the school district. From those kind of guiding principles, there were a number of academic objectives that we saw and the district felt was important. Primarily, the future work, and now we're kind of in the middle of that future work, included providing a full high school experience at Park City, a full middle school at Eckerd Hill. And that really means kind of the decentralization of treasure, moving those 400 students at each grade level to those schools. There was a strong desire to enhance CTE across the district. That acronym stands for Career Technical Education. Again, you can think of the PC CAPS program as really the model of where districts want to be because we're leading the forefront on that. Providing early learning opportunities in conjunction with our wraparound service support, which is an outreach to communities. Long range, there was discussions about how we can improve energy efficiency. Park City itself, the city has a 2030 challenge of being net neutral or carbon neutral. And it is a pretty aggressive goal, and the district had made commitments in previous board discussions to move towards that goal. Circulation at the Kearns campus was a topic that kept coming up again and again. not only as it relates to the traffic flow, but just general student safety and support. And then obviously, with any long range plan, we always want to be considering what's the growth strategy. As a district, and working with the previous business mayor's administration, we understood that somewhat locked in on growth, but there is potential on those perimeter communities to grow. It's also important to remember that the age of your facilities will continue to kind of age out. There's some great improvements that are happening now, but some of the core of the buildings are, 30, 40 years old. And so that long range plan should include either remediation, remodeling, replacement strategies. We can cycle through the next couple of slides. You have these available and the superintendent can pass this along. For each school, we went through and did a needs assessment, met with the principals, and really walked each one of those buildings and kind of did a checklist based on the education facilities assessment work that was completed before that. There's a lot of consistencies, honestly. It's about providing collaborative teaching space. It's about providing enhanced opportunities for CTE, improving energy efficiency, and looking at ways that the community can kind of connect back to the schools itself. Next slide. From that master plan study, there were really 4 main priorities that came out. Priority number 1 was the full high school experience, like we talked, getting those 400 ninth graders into the high school itself and finding space for those students. Initially incorporating the learning center into the project as well, and that's shifted now as we walk through the process. And then enhancing the CTE spaces and really finding a new home for the PCCAPS program. Priority 2 was the middle school experience, very similar. Let's find a place for those 400 middle school students so that Treasure Mountain could be decommissioned or repurposed down the road. Priority 3 revolved around the community services and adding early learning, pre-K support to elementary schools. And I think kudos to the district on that. That's really leading out in terms of legislation that we anticipate coming down the road in the next couple of years to mandate pre-K services across the state. And then providing that wraparound services, community connections and places for people to land. And then priority 4 was the increase in energy efficiency at all schools. Next slide. This is the NASCAR slide. We're going to have a test on all these logos on the right-hand side. As Mike had mentioned, there's a number of projects that are ongoing, kind of all under the purview of MOCA. We're with MHT Architects. There's another architect on board, BCB Architecture. They're responsible for the work at the elementary schools. Our firm was lucky enough to be working on the high school and Eckerd Hills. Those are in design. They've been bid out, as Mike mentioned. For the high school, we were looking on a classroom addition and PCCAPS program on the western side of the building. Eckerd Hills has a new CTE hub that'll be right in the center of the building with some commons expansion and then 2 classroom additions. And then there's some pre-K services and support that is being added. The Poland is kind of the first out of the gates with the wraparound component as well. Future considerations, it's always good to make sure that you're looking towards where things are going. We make suggestions and we'll suggest continuing your zero energy improvements, finding a home or a purpose for Treasure Mountain, whether that be demolition, repurposing as a field space, or even as a community area. Looking at long range, and this was a topic of conversation, what's the future of Park City High School? Does it need to be continually improved upon in its current location, or is there a new home that would be found for it? Obviously, the traffic considerations along Kern are very important. With the relocation of the students out of Treasure to the high school, that solves a big security kind of safety concern with students walking and migrating back and forth. There's still a lot of traffic, and as Principal Arbabi can talk about, bad student drivers, there's a lot that happens at Kearns, and so there could be some long-range considerations there. Again, accommodating future growth and then bolstering CTE programs as it continues to emerge as a hot topic across the state. So with that, I can answer any questions you may have.
Thanks so much. I remember the whole process. It's very good.
It's a great process, great results.
But only phase 1, right? This is only phase 1. It's a lot of work, but it's phase 1.
Thank you. If you guys have any questions about process or anything there.
Probably a lot to take in.
It's a lot.
Those 6 learner principles were drafted by GSBS, which was a different firm. They got all the way to completing that. That's a huge project. That was about 75 committee members that those 6 principles. I was brand new with them, so that was kind of the first thing I sat in on, listened to. We had students, we had parents, we had educators, and these 6 principles really resonate. You're keeping things center-centered, relationship focused, a lot of light, natural light. So all those things Scott and his team put into the design elements of these editions. So I think all of the things that were highlighted are reflected in the designs. They're beautiful. So it's great to kind of see that closer.
And then what's the time frame for Ecker to build that? To the park on that?
Roughly 2 years.
So say we have all the, we can probably review all of the documents. And looking at JD behind the. But there's a whole, like, chart of all the timelines and steps, and I think you guys are just seeing it as we're running into the issues, so.
I'd love to see
Yeah,
that.
that'd be
My project manager brain is very curious about the mechanics of all of that and the normal project management artifacts, communication plans, stakeholder bridges, all that kind of stuff.
Great, thanks, Scott.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll hop back to 3.3 superintendent.
Terrific. So I have a PowerPoint as well, the lengthy one, but I'm not gonna do every slide. I will just go over the high points because you all have access to it. And then you'll be able to click and see additional parts of the deck. So we can start there very much fine. So we are a purpose-driven learning organization with a clear vision that our students are safe, supported, engaged, challenged, and healthy. That's the national definition of whole school education. And that was determined in 1718 to be a community priority. So we try to align our efforts towards those pillars, towards that goals. And our guiding mission to inspire and support all students equitably to achieve full academic and social potential. That was determined before any of the politicization of any of those terms, but very intentionally to really work on equitable practices and ensuring that any barriers are removed. And one example that I like to use is this Board of Education removed all academic fees before the legislature ever even talked about that. So this community invests about $770,000 a year. No academic fees, no barrier for access, no prerequisites. Kids can move beyond, and you'll see in some of the other slides some of that work and how it's rolling out. And our purpose as a district and as a board is we really create the conditions for staff and student success. So everything we are trying to do is to try to facilitate it being easier, not harder, to ensure staff and student success throughout the system. Park City and our schools are recognized for many different things. We have earned the meritorious budget designation, in addition to the CAFR, in addition to clean audits for 10 years. But that meritorious budget designation, only about 9% of applicants ever receive it. So it is an indicator that we are aligning our budget to our stated priorities, as well as providing a narrative that a non-finance expert can understand. So that reading the meritorious budget application every year provides you a great highlight of how the district is going about allocating its resources, what programs are new, what's being discontinued. And we did earn that again this year. So my first year, Todd earned the Pathway Towards, and then he's earned it every year since. So we've been really pleased about that. 4 of, based on the state accountability system, 4 of our schools are A rated, 2 are B rated. So they are very highly rated in Utah. Based on some niche statistics from this year, 2023, we are the #2 best place to teach in Utah, and that is informed by educators across the state. We are one of the best 3 districts to up in Utah, and one of the best school district, one of the top 6% places to live. So that's always kind of fun to see that. We're also in the US News rankings as having some of the best elementary schools, and 3 of our elementary schools are rated. The middle school has been a school to watch designation, which is a national award for the past 5 years. When we look at Park City, it's one of the best places to live, number 7 best place to live in Utah, number 13 best place for young professionals, and number 5 best public schools in Utah. So that's again another great rating. We are, as you know, an in-migration state. We had about 600 new residents just in this first half of the year. It was about 1,300 overall for the year. So we're growing. We're a county that is growing, and we're pretty aware of that. Our average income does continue to increase, and this national, this housing price is a little startling and a little scary that we are 241% higher than national average of home prices, which speaks to the workforce housing need. Transportation costs are about 11% higher in our area, and our food and groceries are about 3% higher than national average. And I have where to find those index right now, but that's on the slide, so you'll be able to see the source for that data. But kind of interesting that changes year by year. We're at about 30,000 or so people that feed into the Park City School District. We have residents in 060 and 098. We have typically about 100 staff and municipal worker students who do enroll out of district annually. And yeah, we've got our overall population there, and that's our district maps. You can see where our schools are feeding in. We were founded in May 17th of 1915. We have 695 educators and staff currently, and this is how we break out currently. We have some system-wide goals, and I'll be giving you a little bit of mid-year update on these, but basically we have 3 leadership goals, operations and resource goal. We look at being cost effective, and we've got teaching and learning and professional learning goals. Each of our schools has an academic achievement, a teacher educator growth, and a community outreach parent education sort of goal. So each school has 3 goals that align to all of this. So here are some of the things we're working on in our academics for in teaching and learning. Our goal is to provide high quality professional development for all educators, and each school in our mid-year reports and in their mid-year reports this past week highlighted their professional development goal and named the progress that we were making towards their desired outcomes. Some of that is access to different kinds of training. We do have personalized modules where teachers can self-select an area of need to learn more. Statewide, we are part of the LETRS, LETRS training. All certified teachers K-3 do take part in that. And it is a 1 cycle statewide rollout of 3 years. It's basically like getting a master's in reading. And so all educators will participate in that. That's why our training days become so important. And that's why those Friday half days are so important. That's how we incorporate that training. 4th and 5th grade teachers are doing science and math training at that same time. And our secondary team is working on secondary realignment so that by the time the kids switch school, it's a very seamless, easy transition for everybody. This is a little bit littler. Sorry about that, testing the eyes here. With leadership, other goals that we have is that our strong desire is that all students are graduated prepared for career, college, and life-ready skills. And so our different academic goals are monitoring and tracking towards that. We at Park City High School has one of the strongest predictors of post-secondary success. They are one of the highest ranking high schools in the state for that indicator. We are also highly rated for our wide breadth of courses that we offer our students. So we want to continue that trajectory, and our academic goals are linked to that. We want to promote a safe, supportive, equitable, and inclusive learning environment. Our educators brought that up as a really important goal. And one way that we're realizing that goal is the Inspiring and Supporting All Students Equitably team. The committee is on version 3 of its policy proposal and recommendation, which the board will likely see in February and March. We'll be going through a feedback loop before we bring it to you, so that we'll know that stakeholders have gotten a chance to review it. And that is, again, just an additional document that reiterates what is important and what our action steps are going to be to try to realize the removal, of barriers. We want to remove obstacles and barriers for students so that they can succeed. We are working towards a 5-year plan, probably it'll go beyond 5 years, to meet the Utah Portrait of Graduate goals. What that means is it goes beyond just your academic transcript, and it looks at the kinds of opportunities you have as a student to demonstrate leadership, participation in a sport or activity. It's the broader goal of having a well-rounded student lead the system. So you'll hear a lot more about that from the teams through the years. Operations and finance, you get to hear a great update every month from Mr. Tanner. That's where we look at all the different departments. And then certain times of the year, you hear an awful lot from the business administrator. The whole time we do budget development, you'll hear a lot from Randy. So some meetings will really be what we call the VA's meeting. Because
Exciting, it'll be very exciting.
they'll be very excited. So anyway, well, we've done a great job. You'll see that in committee. I think Randy, he actually talked to the auditor before he accepted the job to make sure we were in good shape. So I knew he was a great selection by the board. And when I heard that, so that's a great thing to do, is always check with the auditors on how things are doing. So he's doing a great job managing. We've got a wonderful business services team, and we're really proud of all the accomplishments they've made in a small amount of time that they've been here together. And then we also continue our investment in infrastructure. So our technology devices are used when appropriate. So we want to provide resources for anytime, anywhere learning, but we don't want to bury the kids, especially K-5, with a device. We really want to give them experiences beyond just technology, but we do invest very significantly. What I love about this district is that all students belong to all of us, and we all take great ownership in student success. And graduation is always the most wonderful day, because you see as the students cross the graduation stage, all of the hard work that everybody puts in to see these kiddos succeed. If you didn't know, our last year's graduating class had 419 students. Our graduating classes for the past 4 years have been larger than our incoming classes. So that's why you see it a slight dip in the enrollment. But of the 419 graduates, 82% are college bound. There is more than 110 different colleges and universities. We have 8 students that have abroad. Last year's class earned over $18 million in scholarship awards. The year before that was $14 million. Really quite incredible for a school district our size. Almost 21% of the class last year reported to be first-gen college students. 65% of our first-gen kiddos who attended 2 or 4 year school, with 95% of those kids persisting through. And we give a great deal of credit to Bright Futures and Dream Big program for facilitating that work and that intentionality for the kids. Our average ACT does typically hit the college prep standards. It's usually a little higher than 20. I think it was 22 rather. Usually I think we hit 23 or 24. That's maybe we want it to go a little higher than 22, but each group is a little bit different. And then our average GPA for college bound seniors was a little over 3.5. So last year's class, they're doing a great job, and really important to kind of know those metrics on what kinds of success the kids are achieving. I had each of our principals give an update on their mid-year plans. Like I said, I won't go into tons of detail because you have a link in the PowerPoint that you can see to the principal's presentations, but I tried to just put some highlights here. Some accolades. This year we had 7 National Merit Scholars. When I was in a school, high school that was 3 times the size, we had 12. So it's a really good metric. It means that these kids are getting in the top 1% in this particular standardized assessment. But it does typically mean a full ride scholarship, which is amazing. Lots of good recognition of student leadership and students. Their scholarship and their academic leadership is recognized for sure throughout the state. This has some of the students, the Dream Big, served 76 students so far this year, 21 different AP or concurrent enrollment courses. So again, removing the barriers for kids, 154 college credit earned last year from our first gen group. That's pretty amazing. Each of the schools has a PBIS framework that is a state requirement. Positive behaviors, interventions, and supports. They're consistently applied across school. And in the high school, they've defined those as being prepared, compassionate, hardworking, and safe, and lots of different explanations and visuals of how the kids are achieving those milestones. Multi-tiered system of support means that we are targeting interventions to meet specific kiddos' needs, and we have some data there. And we basically have that information for each school. Treasure did an amazing job of increasing their academic attainments. They've got great participation on their equity nights. They have a great positive current communication goal where 166 positive messages have already been sent out from teachers to parents this year on kid success, which we love. Eckerd Hill has shown great gains in their mid-year scores. This is just one chart, one sample, and then the kids do get some targeted interventions. And these are kids that are participating in getting some extra help during the school day in math or in reading. And again, there's more data if you click into the PowerPoint. Jeremy Ranch has a focus on inquiry cycles, and they've done a third cycle where the teachers are working together on common formative assessments. What is the data telling us? How do we adjust our instruction to meet the kiddos' needs? And then our focus in that school right now is math. Here's just a different example from Charlie's. They're also using the inquiry cycle as we are using wide. All of the schools are working with state ed on this cycle of inquiry. So we analyze our data, we're deciding how to adjust instruction, and we implement it and go and visit and then refine. So it's a great process that everybody's participating in. And then here's an example from Trailside. Some of their action steps are really working on priority standards, working with the instructional coach to align their curriculum maps, also working on common formative assessments. That means we're measuring what's happening in the system, not just by a specific teacher or a specific class, but by the entire grade level. And then we really have some focused time for each student to be able to work on skill development or enrichment. Nick Pullen had a great report as well with their action steps. This is the second year that they have worked with the University of Utah Reading Center on explicit reading instruction. So again, they were working on this ahead of the state decision to do letters to really bolster success. And Nick Pullen is up to a level B accountability system school. So targeted assistance level B on an ABC scale, and within 3 years, pretty amazing. They're doing a great job. So each of the schools doing great work. We've got construction underway at 4 of the schools, full academic days, Monday through Thursday, with Friday being the shorter days for those PLC meetings and others training. Flexible afternoons for teacher wellness activities. We've got a Friday enrichment program for all our elementary students. We're in the second year of that. That's all linked to future learning goals. We've got the MTSS, PBIS, we've got all the acronyms going strong. English is the area, the curriculum area that's in review. And then our supporting and inspiring students equitably is really working on that, the equity actions and the action plan. So really happy with all of that. And then I won't go into the master plan because you already heard from Scott tonight that there's more data there, and it has kind of the timeline in there on when we think things will transfer. So you can again take a peek at that when you have a minute, and that'll be posted then after this meeting publicly, so you'll have access to that. Or it'll probably be a PDF, but the links will work, right? Excellent. Any questions for me?
A couple.
Sure.
So at the beginning, when you were going through performance of the schools, I noticed you said three elementary schools, there's 4 elementary schools. That implies that the 4th is not at the same standard as the other three. So my question, if you're not prepared to talk about it now, I'm happy to talk about it next month. But I'm just curious what the actions are to get that one up to the same standard as the other three. I feel like it might have been answered in the school specific things at the end, but it'd be interesting to talk about that. And the other thing, just out of curiosity, the college acceptance rates, do we know how that compares to other schools?
We do, and I'll be happy to give you that. We can follow up on that. Our counseling department
That'd be
does an amazing one sheet that gives that data.
Yeah, my understanding is we do a great job on that. I'm just curious what the comparisons.
Excellent, good questions. Good questions, and it is high school and treasure, or high school is an A. Treasure also an A. And 2 of the elementary schools are A. Right?
And then 2 are Bs.
2 are Bs.
2 As.
Yeah, so 4 As, 2 Bs.
At the elementary.
And Eckerholm is to be by like over 2 years, and then crazy, a really small amount. And again, they're designated as a middle school program to watch because they're doing so well, but they identified what their debt was. They have their work has been zeroed in on that, and you saw the bump they made even mid-year. So what happened is they were looking at to break out the goal areas so that the kids could hit the top standard. They watered down a little bit too much. They kind of watered down the rigor level. So that because parents were nervous when a kid was earning like a 2, 2, 2, and then a 4, they got a little nervous about that. So they broke things out more. Watered it down a little bit too much. So now we're back to analyzing the standards, making sure you have that high rigor level and saying stand up. But all of our schools, based on the statisticians review, is we have recovered from we are to pre-pandemic levels. So we're achieving where we were in 2019 a little bit. So we are up there, and we do anticipate that growth will work out. Year, even in years, their mid-year results are going to be solid. So they knew, they looked at their data and they knew what to do, and they all got it together and worked on it. So they're very self-directed in wanting the performance to do their best. And that just helps the secondary schools even more once they get to high school. So it's been having a really strong elementary program to support.
Okay, let's kind of skip around a little bit more. I know Ann has to go relatively soon. Get to our decision items, which is first one is school calendar adjustment for this year. The reason we're looking at an adjustment in the calendar is because of the unanticipated snow day. Jill, do you want to walk us through what our choices are?
There are so many choices. So one choice that you could make is that we could make March 17th an in-person learning day, or we could make it a remote learning day. So you have 2 different choices there. And then if we make it a in-person day, we could bump our training over to June 5th. Just extended teacher day to after the school year ends. We could give enough time, we can advertise that to people, we likely will have good attendance, not as many people are leaving March 17th for a 3-day weekend. So we could do in person, or we're gonna do online learning as a March 17th option, so those are 2 options. But that would mean that the educators would be asked to come back on the 5th for that training that they would miss on the 7th.
And you were able to discuss that?
Yeah.
Not been able to.
And what's the professional development day is, it's a contract day, but it doesn't necessarily have to be PD, right?
Correct.
So another option would be that we just have school on that day and cancel that PD, right?
Correct.
But is there not a penalty?
That is a letters day, but we will work with the letters trainers to be able to read. So it's really the K-3 that have that mandatory statewide 3-year program to get letters trained. But we've worked with.
Oh, great.
Do that. If somebody just doesn't show up, it's a charge, but
Oh,
this
got
will be an
Okay.
actual.
And you would move it to
June 5th.
well, I mean, so is there another option that's not workable for the educators? I mean, I think we should talk to them first and make
Yeah.
sure we're not, if they're all leaving, meaning that schools out on
Right.
Friday.
Friday, and then
Monday.
come back on Monday.
We have talked about that, we talked about it Saturday.
Yeah, but why wouldn't we just cancel?
Yeah.
That's what I was wondering.
Because for this, well, so we could cancel it,
Right.
but because the training's required by the state, the 3-year cycle is required, we're gonna have to find some time to.
But could we do it in August or?
Yeah.
Oh, but you could do it August.
So maybe we can do it next year.
Okay.
We could do it in August. Yeah,
What about, yeah,
that's probably the easiest.
That's
The
easier,
easiest
but
is
yeah.
probably to turn it into a full day.
Yeah.
By policy, if
Yeah.
you have an emergency day,
I know.
you take a day in April break to make it a school day. It's very challenging for families and for educators who have planned a vacation.
But this is late in the game.
Yeah.
Right.
So we can make that a school day, which is a half day, but that, anyway. It's a half day.
I think the question for PC
Yeah.
is, would they rather do the PD at the end of this, at the end of the school year, or would they rather do it at one of the days in August?
Yeah.
I don't think, I think they should decide that.
I
I
agree.
mean,
Great, I agree.
The ones that have to come back for it.
Yeah.
you got that any views on that?
No, I think my perspective, that's the right thing to do. I think doing the day in person for school is preferable. And then it comes down to them making a decision.
Yeah.
They'd rather.
I think-
I imagine they're gonna pick it in August if I had to guess. And by the end of the school year, they're.
That would be my guess too, especially because I'm
They're
sure
calling
that
it.
some people are leaving right on that.
Yeah,
Get out,
Yeah.
take vacation.
But I'm certainly happy to hear from them.
Yeah.
So when we jump then into August of 23, then where does that go?
Yeah.
So then when we look at the start of the next year, as you heard from our employee interest group this year that came in, or that you kind of heard, we had a tentative calendar posted. So if we do any really dramatic changes to that, that's hard.
Yeah.
But like a day for the educators usually doesn't bother anybody too much.
I would say, because this is a decision item, we have to, well, we can choose to make a decision, or we can choose to wait for a decision, or our third option is to make a decision that as a board, we're comfortable with the educators choosing, and then the PCEA can decide when they want, we can decide. So we can vote on, okay, we're comfortable as a board to make the 17th an in-person learning day, and then give discretion to PCEA and admin to work out what the makeup day is, whether it's June 6th or it's
Yeah.
August,
Yeah.
whatever.
Right.
That would-
That sounds great.
So do you want to make a motion to make the 17th an in-person day, and then give the ability for the admin to negotiate with PCEA on the choice between June 6th and August?
Okay.
20th?
I make a motion to make March 17th a school day and to allow for the administration to work with PCEA to decide on what the makeup for the PD in either June or in August.
Second.
Okay, do we have any other further discussion on that motion? Okay, all those in favor of passing that motion, please say aye. Okay, that's unanimous. Okay, the next decision item we have is policy 10015 student placement. So this is under number 7. It's a one-page policy if you guys haven't reviewed it, but essentially it has to do with student placement and class assignments. And allows the school site to decide where student, which class a student is in. So it's a policy that governs, that basically delegates the responsibility of school, of class placement to the school. And you'll see that we have a lot of policies that are by statute required. Started in 95, it's reviewed every 10 years. Here we are, we were reviewing it, and all these policies, and we're going to have one for posting, are posted publicly for 20 days, and then the public and member stakeholders is able to comment on, on the changes if there are any. So, Lori, did we receive any comments on this policy? Okay. So I'll entertain a motion to pass policy 10015.
I'll make a motion to pass policy 10015 as stated. Second.
Yeah, do you guys have any questions or just in this policy? All right,
Any different?
no,
No, yeah.
nothing new.
And we usually highlight it in red when it's different, so you can see, like I think the other one has red, you'll see what's saying.
That's good. All right, all those in favor of adopting policy 10015, please say aye. Okay, that passes unanimously. Now we will go to, we will go to two discussion items. So the first discussion item is the 2023-24 school calendar. And what I would say to our new members is we try to vote on what we do vote on and agree 2 years out. So this calendar has already been voted on and is public. So if you go to the website and you want to check when spring break 2024 is, it's out there. So that's relevant in this conversation around potentially changing it. And with that, I will.
Correct. So one of the things, for instance, will right now, based on the last decision that the board just voted on, we'll have to make the teacher day, no matter what, even if there are no other changes, we'll have to make the first teacher day the 16th instead of the 17th, right? So we'll have to make adjustments so that they can get that training that they would have missed if they want to do it in August. If they decide they want to stay in June and do it the 5th, then we don't have to mess with this one. But that's just an example of, you know, it all kind of tracks and domino effects, exactly. So the one some of the challenges that came in on that we talk about as a group often is if you want certain things to be like you really want to be out as early as possible in June, or you really want the April break to always be the second week, like if there are things like that, parameters like that, you can set that as a board. If you want winter break to scale differently so that you're not out as early as the 18th, but you're out maybe the 22nd, you know, those are things you need to talk about, you know, as a board team. We can give you some recommendations on things that we think work, but we also know historically our community has liked to have the February break, and that's pretty much always the week of President's Day. They have liked to have an April break, and those days in orange, our teachers work evenings for conferences, and then these are their compensatory days. So they get the day, the Wednesday of Thanksgiving, and then the first day of April break as compensatory days. So you're not losing a school day. You're, you know, giving the teachers their time back that they spent in the evening, making sure they meet with all the parents. We did make a change last year to add down to shore as one of the days. So this 23-24 does actually have September 25th as no school. If we do continue that, I think the year after it's a Saturday, Yom Kippur is a Saturday. So that would be kind of a traveling, you can have a floating day, it won't be as that. We did try going to a 1-day fall break with UEA that was not well received by the adults or the families. Families love doing college visits when their kids are in high school that particular weekend. So we did go back to the 2 days on that. But, you know, lots of people have talked about, you know, we want to move winter break back. And again, the challenge in doing that is we've already had this listed for a while. But you could always certainly have that discussion for the future.
Here's your question, why is October 31st?
Oh, that came out after we lose so many kids.
Oh, so.
Everyone goes to Main Street.
Everybody got Main Street.
Got it.
So we had like
Okay.
80 or 90% of Everhill check out this year early. So we thought if we designed it so that we can get some good PD done that day,
Got it, okay.
that might benefit everybody.
Okay.
So that was the reason for that adjustment. Minimum school day is like 4 hours. So as long as we meet the minimum
Right.
school day,
That's why we don't want to
That's
do
why-
late on a Friday.
that might be.
So we'd have a half day Tuesday and then a half day Friday that week. Got it, okay.
Yeah, so I think given that we're gonna automatically be, well, I guess not, but we could potentially be adjusting this if the teachers choose August. So what are you looking for guidance on? Do we want to change this, or are we gonna start looking at the next, as a 3-year outlook and look at next year?
You could direct us to start looking at a 3-year outlook. We've not started that.
I think we should, I mean, do you guys have a view on that? So the calendar is the absolute worst item that any of us could be involved in, because no matter what you decide, everyone's upset. To me, going out 3 years is a good call, because then everyone knows what it looks like. And it's just it's a good cycle to be on. Even as you can see, going out 2 years, there's still things that can be changed, but at least we can keep the vacations and the main things going. So,
Right.
I mean, I would be in support of looking at 3 years. If you guys want to look at that, at least start looking at it and see how it looks, and let's do it.
Sorry, just to clarify, what were you talking about moving things in December around?
So that we don't probably have.
Did you say-
Choosing hypothetically. We have to do that.
Yeah.
One of the things that came up in the administrative meeting last week was if we move back, still have the 2 weeks, but have the last day of school be the 22nd.
Oh, I got it.
That would be,
Okay.
balance the semesters a little bit more. The challenge we run in, and people are saying, oh, you were gone. We were gone maybe for the holiday.
Right.
But the challenge in it is, a lot of people don't want to travel as late as the 22nd, they'd rather have those days. So again, it's kind of a big conversation as to, are you okay with the balance, or would you rather be tired to?
Right.
to Christmas
Got it.
holiday? It's really up to. You guys balance it. We did from the time Mr. Bobby's been here as the principal, we talked about that importance of balance of the semester and trying to have the kids end the semester before winter break, so they have a true brain break and a true break from the 2 semesters. But it's been hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to balance that. So like, for example, if we leave this 23-24 as it is, we'll come back from winter break, have 2 weeks, then it will be the semester change. So. And again, we've tried it for a couple of years before. We could try it next year, 2 weeks after, and just weigh out. Kind of survey the kids, how did it work? Survey the teachers, how did it work? From the teachers' voices, I'm hearing they'd rather have it. They're okay with it being split. They're okay with it. They won't load the kids up over winter break with work and class and all that.
So they are, I mean,
They're kind of.
I'm just.
Okay. So we have one policy. No, he didn't speak about it.
No.
We have one policy for posting, so this means that this will be public for 20 days, and the next school board meeting will vote on adopting it. This policy is 10036, grade replacement, proposed changes. And if you scan through here, it's a red line copy. And it was adopted, the last time I looked at it was 5 years ago or 6 years ago.
I did have a question.
Okay, so what we'll do is we will make a motion to post this, and then we'll have the questions and conversations.
I make a motion to post policy 136 grade replacement.
But a second. Okay, perfect. All right, now open for discussion questions.
Yeah.
Meredith.
More clarifying points. So this policy is about making up your grades or taking a course again, and as one of the examples provided, it says band or student council. I wasn't aware that student council was a.
Some leadership course.
Okay. And I haven't looked through the whole.
Yeah, Zach. It's like, yeah. It's a worthy prize.
Is journalism not still offered or is?
It is.
Okay.
I would doubt that any
Curious why.
council can have to.
Right.
Because they're all dedicated to it. They have to interview, they have to be elected. That was elected by his peers, either represented for the board. I mean, they're all pretty serious.
I'm sure they're not soccer. Yeah.
Yeah, and then when you go down to the very end, there's a hyperlink for the Utah code. And so on a lot of these policies that are mandated by Utah state law,
Yeah.
that's the reference doc that you can be like, well, why are we doing this policy?
Got it.
Typically, they're determined by the legislature, and that's, we have to be in compliance. Okay, any other questions on this one? All right. All those in favor of posting policy 10036, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's 4 ayes, so. Ann is left. Okay, last issue of business is public comment. Do we have anyone here for public comment? No, okay. In that case, I will entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting until our next regularly scheduled meeting, which is going to be February.
Oh, you were discussed that,
Ooh,
right?
Valentine's Day.
Yeah,
And they're the concerts.
I know, right, the Valentine's concert. So Anne has mentioned that she would be able to maybe join her. We could consider doing like we've done before, starting it early.
I'm fine with that.
Go to the concert.
What time's the show? You know,
6:30.
okay, would you guys be okay starting at 3? That should probably give us enough time.
And I still have big.
Yes.
Valentine's.
Are you good with 3? All right. Yeah.
Big Valentine's plan.
All right. Well, that's why you want to start early. Get out of here. All right, so we'll entertain a motion to adjourn this till our next regularly scheduled meeting on February 14th, Valentine's Day at 3 p.m.
I make a motion to adjourn until our next scheduled meeting on February 14th at 3 p.m.
I think it's second by Nick. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, meeting's adjourned. Thank you.